Hello, a very warm welcome to Fireside Chats. My name is Magla Pillay. Today's topic is entitled Philosophical Pain. In this series, we look at a variety of subjects surrounding spirituality, what it means, what it does not mean. We ask you to take a good look into your mind and heart and ask yourself important questions like, are you really happy or content? Is there something missing in your life? Is there something that you need to add or subtract in order to make your life more meaningful? We ask you also to look at your relationship with God and establish whether it's a deep, real and fulfilling one. Today's speaker is Sister Denise, an experienced practitioner of Raj Yoga meditation. Sister Denise, thank you so much for joining us. A very warm welcome.
Thank you very much.
Philosophical pain. What on earth is that?
Well, there are many kinds of pain: physical, emotional, psychological, financial, social, mental, and philosophical is also there. I think that every person works out in their own mind their idea of how the world operates. And it needs to fulfill certain criteria in order to be acceptable. That is to say, in order for you to feel all right about living in this world. Of course, there are many, many things wrong with this world. But you work out a worldview in your mind, and I think philosophical pain occurs when you have worked out a worldview whose conclusion is that it doesn't make any sense for you to continue to live. However, suicide is wrong. That's, I suppose, an example of philosophical pain.
Ouch. Okay.
That's painful. You know, and people do arrive at these kinds of conclusions, and there's nowhere to go. So you need help. You need access to some information that's going to change the equation. And so I think it's a very important subject, and I also think it's a very important subject to put with spirituality, because unless you can get access to clear information that makes your life or human life worth living, then why are you here? And if you have to be here where you shouldn't be here, according to the calculations, then it's insane. And that is also not acceptable. So, you know, it forces you into such a difficult position that you just sort of internally scream, I need to know what the truth is, you know?
Yes.
And I think that there must be quite a few people who have reached such moments.
Now, Sister Denise, there are some people who are looking for God, and there are some people who are looking for the truth.
Yeah, there are people who are looking for something and they will put different words for it. I think probably there's more people looking for truth than looking for God as such. There might be people looking for an explanation, you know, I need to understand what's going on, you see. People talk about life, the universe and everything. I want to know. And I think that the spiritual knowledge that we learn in the Brahma Kumaris is really good, because it's a closed system and it actually is ready to answer any question that anyone can have on any subject, which is good.
Yeah, just good. Okay, Sister Denise, the law of karma also is in operation here, isn't it? So someone has come to that point. How?
Well, this is where the philosopher will say, okay, you know, who made the first mistake and why? and you need an answer for that, you see. And what is the cause of the first mistake if it isn't a reaction to another mistake? There has to be something that causes the first mistake. What's the answer to that? And so the spiritual knowledge of Brahma Kumaris gives you an answer, which is really very interesting. And what it says is that, look, the soul, as it passes through time, reaches a point where the half-life is finished and the soul drops from soul consciousness to body consciousness, and automatically the soul begins to have false consciousness, and that's what causes the first mistake. So there you have an answer. And then you say, okay, so the first mistake, and eventually you will get to the last mistake. What is the last mistake? Well, everything basically falls apart. And then what? You see.
When one reaches that state, okay, you feel the need to do something. Something should happen. There has to be a shift. But there's also something that must come from the seeker's side. What does he or she do to take himself out of that space? What does he do? Where does he go?
He can't. He just has a hammer and he bangs. I mean, you know that book, Things Fall Apart.
Chinua Achebe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a very extraordinary book, because it says, okay, we were fine, and then things fell apart, and that's the end of the story. And they continue to fall apart more and more and more. How far is it going to go? Because a philosopher's mind goes all the way to the end and says, then what? You see. Because there has to be an answer, then what? And then what? And then what? Which is why I like the knowledge of the Brahma Kumaris, because it's a closed circle. And eventually, when you reach to the state of everything being totally fallen apart, you know, what we were talking about earlier, you know, the phoenix rises from the tip of Africa. That's an idea, you know. So that means to say, okay, you see everything declining to the lowest point, and then it has to rise again. And this idea of the phoenix that dies by fire, total destruction, and is born by fire. So destruction and birth come together. The fire that causes the destruction is the same fire out of which the new phoenix arises. So you see, someone who is in philosophical pain from seeing part of the picture, that pain can be alleviated only by seeing the whole picture and the continuity. And where I am satisfied myself with this process that goes from one extreme to the other, and also shows how you can restart in a state of everything being, you know, perfect. You go from absolute perfect to absolute imperfection, and the end and the beginning touch, you know, which is also symbolized by this image of the snake biting its tail, and which has this ruby in the forehead. And this is also an ancient symbol and a spiritual symbol, which refers to the soul going through the cycle all the way from the head to the tail, and the head and the tail have to come together. So the extremes of perfection and imperfection have to touch, and then the one changes into the other, which is the metamorphosis, the transformation, the transfiguration, the solution, if you will, to the catastrophic calculation that just goes down and down to where, you see. Because you can't just go indefinitely down. Things are not open, actually. They're closed. And this is what I think is, to me, very interesting about the Brahma Kumari's knowledge, and which allows you to reconcile all of these parts of these equations that you come up with that you cannot find a solution to.
So Denise, search for truth, is it a head thing? And this is the context in which I'm asking this question. Philosophical pain, is it a head pain or is it a heart pain? And from that, I need to know, is the search for truth, it's, well, obviously you've got to use your head to understand it, but the heart fits into this picture somehow, does it not?
I mean, there are some people who keep the head and the heart quite separate. And somebody says, well, I'm a head person and somebody else is a heart person, and fine. But I think ultimately the head and the heart have to work together. And a philosophical pain is a pain in the heart and in the head. But I think the pain in the head is very severe in a different way from pain in the heart, because it's a pain to do with meaning. The pain in the heart is more to do with feeling.
Say more about pain to do with meaning. Meaning of what?
Meaning of life. If your life has no meaning, why are you living it?
Sure.
And then if you end it, why is that sinful? And if life has no meaning, how come it's called sacred? You know, there are bits of the equation that absolutely don't fit, because you need more information. You see, because no one will really argue that life is sacred, but then life is cheap. So how do you reconcile those two things?
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, tell us what you have learned on your spiritual journey that you feel can alleviate the philosophical pain of somebody listening to you right now.
The important thing, what I've learned, is the system being a closed system. And where each and every part of the system can be investigated all the way through to its beginning. You can see its whole track within this closed system, this sphere, you can say. Normally, philosophers work with open systems. And the problem with an open system is, well, you know, it has a size limit which you don't know. But it's not indefinite, it's not infinite. Take, for example, the people who say, you know, how old is the universe? Well, the universe is 14 billion years old, and it started with a big bang. You know, well, why was there a big bang, and where was that big bang? Because if the universe wasn't there, then what was there when there wasn't somewhere? You know?
Yes.
So when you take it to the philosophical end of the argument, an open system is very unsatisfactory because it's unanswerable. And then they say, oh, well, it's mysterious, or we will find out eventually, you know. But that's not satisfactory from the point of view of the process of thought. Whereas a closed system, where you have the machinery of the universe going through different phases, and you have the existence of God who brings it back to its state of perfection. So the whole thing is constantly moving from perfection to imperfection, but you cannot really work with that until and unless you think of yourself as an endless, eternal, immortal being of light who is able to manage the extremes of absolute perfection and absolute imperfection. And that is so different from how a normal person is taught to think about their existence, you see. That has made everything very satisfactory. And then you look at your personal track within that. And of course you can't see the whole thing so easily, but as you learn methods to go deep into yourself, because you see the whole thing, you see the example of the one who goes all the way through from the beginning to the end. You can say the first created person, you can say, which is legendary. Then you see, okay, well, where do I fit in all this? And you see your track, you see your sanskaras, you see your potential, you examine yourself very deeply, and you see yourself in your context, and you bring that context to the limits of eternity, which is that it comes back to its beginning. So once you can see the whole thing, from the beginning all the way through to the middle to the end and again to the beginning, and you understand all the mechanism that works and the relationship between God, human souls, and matter, and you see this whole dance, and you understand how it is a endless, it really gives you the clue of the search. People have a search for perpetual motion. Well, this is showing how this machine is in perpetual motion, and then you have to really put your mind, and there it's not to do with your heart at all, it's totally to do with the mind as a head thing altogether.
Sister Denise, I want to chat a bit about understanding. So, to coin a very popular Hollywood phrase, the truth is out there. Okay, so somebody who is imprisoned by philosophical pain, the pain is of his own ignorance as well as the karmic debt that he's carrying. The pain that he or she is experiencing is a result of not being able to see and understand the truth about himself and life.
I don't think it's anything to do with his karmic debt. I think it's to do with the fact that on this earth there is not enough information to answer these questions.
So
and
his
that
pain
is what gives the pain.
Okay, so his pain is the fact that he doesn't comprehend the full.
He comprehends very well according to the information available.
Okay.
But there's missing pieces he cannot get.
Yeah.
And that inability to get the missing pieces is the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those missing pieces can only be provided by God, who is outside of and much different from the human intellectual processing.
Okay. Now, Sister Denise, you did mention God. Tell us exactly how he fits into this picture. We know that he's the omniscient one.
Yes.
What does God know that somebody who's suffering with or from philosophical pain needs to understand? Is the understanding his freedom?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so once he knows and gets it, he's free from the pain.
Absolutely.
Okay, that must be some relief.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
yes. Okay, so what
he doesn't know is that he's a soul, and he doesn't know what a soul is, and he doesn't know how a soul moves through eternity. He doesn't know time. He just knows a bit of time. He doesn't know the whole thing. He doesn't know God. He doesn't know the relationship between God, humanity, and the earth, you see, because the material world is deteriorating. So now the scientists are saying, well, everything became perfect at the moment of the Big Bang, and all the laws of physics miraculously came into place at that moment, which was awfully long ago, and there wasn't anybody there to look at it. And then here we are, and we're deteriorating, and we're okay because there's another 14 billion years to go before humanity's light fizzles out, you see. And then what? Nothing. You see, so philosophical pain occurs when you project your existing information and the final conclusion is there is nothing. That means there is no point. That's it. That is nihilism.
What does, I was thinking about that word earlier, funny you should mention. What do you mean there is nothing?
Well, that's what happens when everything deteriorates to a point when there is nothing, and then what? Nothing. That is nihilism.
Okay.
So what God tells is, do not worry, there isn't nothing. Everything goes between perfection and imperfection, and when we reach the extreme of imperfection, then I, God, come and bring it from imperfection to perfection. So there's continuity. And all you have to do is have an attitude of equanimity around the reality of this swaying, this pendulum between perfection and imperfection. And then you see you come to terms with it, you spin the cycle of all the different forms of change from the most perfect to the most imperfect, and when you spin everything, you know, it all looks one color, and that's balance, and that gives you the positioning in regard to the meaning of existence. And that is very, very subtle and cannot arrive in anyone's mind without knowledge of God, knowledge of eternity, knowledge of time, knowledge of perfection and imperfection, which is the exclusive domain of the intelligence of God. So if you don't believe in God, then you're not even going to try for it. And if you get access to God and you say, okay, sit down, I have questions. I need to know this, 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 this. And God will patiently sit down and say, this, and this, and any more questions? Okay, then this, and this. And then you can be satisfied. But the information about God, I do not think, is known to the conventional religions. And so the conventional religions provide some indicators, some belief systems, but they also contain areas where you say, well, you just have to have faith, but there's no explanation. And because of that, the philosopher will say, it doesn't satisfy me, because I am not ready to just take a leap of faith. That is plenty fine for most people, but not for the one who has philosophical pain. He needs to know.
Okay, Sister Denise, very, very fascinating subject. Okay, is it possible for somebody to have such intense pain but not be able to name their pain? Because you have to diagnose yourself to some extent, don't you?
Yeah, I think they will, because what they will arrive at is, I want to know. And that information isn't to be found through the scientific method. It isn't to be found through mysticism. You know, because you're going to go through everything and you're going to use every possible thing available. Maybe you take many lives to do that, whatever. But it cannot be known through investigation. It can only be known independently. So the interesting thing about God is God knows something independently of its existence in time. So God's intellect is a very non-human intellect. So a human cannot invent God. A lot of them think, oh well, God is a figment of human imagination, but that's not a very satisfactory description of God, you know. But unless and until a person actually, you know, has that encounter and says, okay, now you're God, I have questions. Can we talk?
Mm.
And God says, yeah,
Mm.
what do you want to know? And you say, well, first of all, I want to know, who am I? Second of all, I want to know, who are you? And third of all, I want to know what's going on. These are the basic questions. But they're so vast and so deep, that people are trying every which way to figure this out. But I feel that that is known by the one who is called omniscient, And omniscient doesn't mean, who were you talking to on the phone last night? It's not that sort of silly question, but it's this whole knowledge of the whole machinery of existence, of matter, spirit, and also of God himself. That is something known to God, not to humanity.
Mm. Mm.
And some people say, oh, well, don't you dare try and know that, because then you would become like God and that would be bad.
Mm.
So that's a fear that many people do have. God will talk to who he wants to talk to. An arrogant person talking to God, God's going to say, come and talk to me when you come down from that position, So I think that there isn't the danger that people are worried about.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of people who try to conquer the world and play God, and so, but it fails always. It always fails.
Thank you for a fascinating half an hour. Until today, I never knew such a pain existed. But there we go. I consider myself educated. So, philosophical pain. I think the essence of today's talk for me is when Sister Denise shared that there are 3 questions that somebody who's deeply searching needs the answers to. The question is, who am I? Who are you? A second is who God is. And the third question is what on earth is going on with the world? And there are many who've tried to answer this question, and if in your heart and in your mind you feel that this answer that's given to you is 1% false, then it cannot be the truth. Okay? And the second thing that Sister Denise shared is that the only person who can give you the answers to these essential questions that we all have in our hearts is God himself. So if this is your pain, there is somebody on the planet who understands your pain. And very simply, God is waiting for you. A very nice note on which to end today's show. Thank you so much for joining us, and we do hope to see you soon. Take care and goodbye.